So I like to categorize 5 elements or groups that support the election fraud narrative for the 2020 US presidential election. The first are traditional right-wing YouTube channels. The second are Falun Gong and its splinter channels. Falun Gong is led by NTD, but it also has several new channels that people may not know are affiliated with Falun Gong. The third are independent YouTube channels run by mainlanders against the Chinese Communist Party. These channels are allied with Falun Gong and Tsai and the DPP party in Taiwan against the Chinese Communist Party. They are trying to make everything about the Chinese Communist Party, even a US election, which doesn't necessarily have everything to do with the Chinese Communist Party. Here's a comparison between Jimmy Kimmel and Malson about Trump's recent tweet.
Donald is still in denial, still refusing to cooperate. He spent the weekend rage tweeting about how the election was rigged, but I feel like he may be coming around because last night he tweeted that he won the election in all caps. I won the election.
川普总统昨天晚上正式宣布已经赢得总统大选胜利。
This morning, he backed off a little bit and tweeted a lower sentence case. That's as close as he's going to get to a concession speech.
朋友们看看，这是川普总统亲自正式宣布，猫神只能选择相信。但我目前还不知道发生了什么大事。川普总统为什么突然宣布胜利？但可以肯定，一定是发生重要的事情了。猫神会持续关注。也有朋友问我有什么证据，那猫神没有证据。如果你现在看见习近平宣布什么消息，你需要证据吗？川普总统的正式宣布就是证据。朋友们，猫神热烈祝贺川普总统赢得大选，也祝贺视频前支持川普的朋友们，我们取得了胜利。我们也实在太难了，今天终于胜利了。
So Malson has a very well-followed channel on YouTube. I like to call her the cat goddess. She definitely falls into the category of mainlanders who are not based in China, that are against the Chinese Communist Party, and are allied with the Tsai administration in Taiwan, and possibly Falun Gong. The difference in reaction between her channel and Jimmy Kimmel was rather hilarious to me. I had to share that with you guys. The fourth group are Taiwan independence YouTube channels. Some of these are pro-Tsai, and some of these are against Tsai. Either way, they are all suggesting or basically saying that the November 3rd presidential election in the US was rigged on a very large scale. Why are they so interested and invested in the election when it's not their country? This has a lot to do with the Taiwan independence movement. The TI movement, as I call it, is heavily dependent on the Trump administration's continued backing. They don't know what they're going to get with Biden. The last group is the 1450, which is basically the paid internet army of the Tsai administration. Those familiar with Wu Mao from mainland China or the 50 Cent Army should know what the 1450 or the 1450 is. They're basically the same thing, except they work for Tsai instead of the Chinese Communist Party. They basically go around attacking anyone that suggests anything is wrong with the Tsai administration, including her rigged election on January 11th. This group of people, for the first few days after the election, was spreading a lot of information on Facebook, YouTube comments, and Line, the chat app used in Taiwan, that the election was rigged. Here are 3 comments that were held for review on my channel, but I didn't approve of them. This one says, 跟 Biden 的手法一样. This means that Biden rigged his election the same way Tsai rigged her re-election. This next one says, Biden 也作票, Tsai Ing-wen 也作票, 两个都是假总统. That means that Biden and Tsai both rigged their elections and they're both fake presidents. This one says, 让全世界知道21世纪民主的美国在野党 Biden 如何在2020总统大选作票3000万张以上. So this was a comment left in my first video about how Tsai Ing-wen rigged her re-election. The video claims that Tsai Ing-wen stuffed at least 4 million ballots. This user is claiming that Biden stuffed 30 million ballots.
Tell him I'm sorry I'm interrupting everyone's lunch.
对不起，打扰大家吃饭的时间。
You came in for a quiet lunch and I showed up.
本来大家想安安静静到这里吃饭，结果到这里。
当时呢，他们点了北京的这个炸酱面，还有呢我们店的这个包子，猪肉大葱馅的包子，还有呢时令的小菜，完了还有呢一个就是可口可乐。5个人呢，一共就花了这个79元钱啊。拜登呢，这个人也非常的幽默，特别的和蔼，给人的感觉呢一种特别可亲可敬的那种感觉。
拜登在这吃过饭吧，还是挺意外的。这个咱们每次选了一个新的总统，还都有点渊源的这种感觉哈。我是觉得可能在这个大选过后吧，可能会有这样的渊源，可能中美关系可能会更好一点。
这个当选了哈，我们也是特别的这个高兴啊，因为我们之间也已经见过面了，而可以说我们是一个老的朋友了啊。如果说拜登有希望来中国的话，我们也希望拜登还能够光顾我们这个小店哈，我们来叙叙旧啊，叙叙情啊，完了再来品尝我们的小吃啊，让我们的友谊更加的这个长存。
However, we can see that 4 days later, Tsai Ing-wen issued her congratulations over Twitter to Joe Biden and Kamala Harris. So why did the Tsai Ing-wen administration have a change of heart? Well, they tried hard, like these other groups, to discredit the election. However, after about 4 days, it was clear that Trump was going to lose the election. So she basically turned her back on the Trump administration, which has helped her immensely in the last 4 years, and especially for her re-election, which she had to rig to stay in office. This favor was repaid by allowing pork imports with ractopamine and purchasing F-16s at an inflated price. By doing this, the Tsai Ing-wen administration is basically breaking ranks with Falun Gong, which they were formerly allied with. It's a matter of self-preservation. Seeing that Biden's stock is going up and Trump's stock is going down, she has no choice but to turn her back on the Trump administration and hope that Biden allows her to stay in office. The following channel, Crossroads, is, I believe, a Falun Gong-backed channel. The Falun Gong definitely noticed that the Tsai administration issued their congratulations and made a note of it in this show, I believe.
And so for tonight, I'm going to go briefly into what's happening with this Dominion system, and also I want to talk some about what's happening with Taiwan. The Taiwanese government congratulated Biden, but told him to beware of socialism and of selling Taiwan to the Chinese Communist Party. Electronic technology has accelerated digital totalitarianism. As we all know, in China, the Chinese Communist Party has achieved comprehensive surveillance of more than 1 billion people through facial recognition, artificial intelligence, big data, other high technology, and established a digital totalitarian total control of its society in order to protect the CCP's dictatorship. However, the United States, here, the leftist forces are using the loophole of electronic voting to manipulate the elections, arrange or tamper with election results in order to seize power, and prepare to further promote socialist policies, thereby moving the United States towards digital totalitarianism. And these things are being defended by the big tech, big social media, and by big media. This whole media industrial complex, as I like to call it. Now, recently as well, some have asked, for example, is Tsai Ing-wen, why are these foreign presidents, foreign officials congratulating Biden? Tsai Ing-wen in Taiwan also congratulated Biden. Was this a good thing or a bad thing? On November 7th, Tsai tweeted her congratulations to Biden and Harris for winning the election, because it's what the media is saying. We can presume in a lot of countries it's all they're hearing, unless they get some of the alternative media here, and who knows how widespread that is. Now, however, because of the fraudulent election, Trump did not concede, which caused the public to have different opinions about Tsai's congratulations. Now, I'm sorry for the delay in getting to this, but I'd like to ask you a question first. Now, all right. Who do you think would be safer and friendlier to Taiwan and more intimidating to the Chinese Communist Party? Which, between Biden and Trump, which one is safer for Taiwan? which one is more intimidating to the Chinese Communist Party? Another question on this. In retrospect, in the 8 years that Biden and Obama had been in the White House and the 3 years that Trump has been in power, who has been more helpful or supportive of Taiwan? Now, who keeps promoting Taiwan and opposing the CCP's suppression of Taiwan in the international community? I think it's clear that to everyone that the answer to all these questions is Trump and not Biden. The Trump administration not only assisted Taiwan in its military defense, provided Taiwan with a large number of high-end arms sales, and promoted visits to Taiwan by senior U.S. officials, but Pompeo also frequently promoted Taiwan's pandemic control, their achievements in mask diplomacy in the international community, praised Taiwan's contributions to the world, defended Taiwan's sovereignty, and so on. Many Republican members of Congress have also introduced bills urging the United States to support Taiwan. In addition to this, the Trump administration's trade war against the Chinese Communist Party has prompted a large number of foreign invested enterprises and Taiwanese businesses to pull out of China and alter their production lines, resulting in a large amount of capital moving into or back into Taiwan. Now, as a result of this, Taiwan has become one of the few economies in the world to perform well this year under the pressure of the pandemic. In other words, the Trump administration is really a true friend who supports Taiwan and protects it, in their eyes, right? Now, the American Institute of Taiwan also used this term to describe U.S.-Taiwan relations. Why does the Trump administration support Taiwan so much? In addition to Taiwan's unique strategic position, more importantly, both Taiwan and the U.S. society share the same emphasis on universal and traditional values. But now Taiwan's good friend is trapped in a controversial and flawed election. Although the final outcome of the election is still uncertain, right? We should emphasize this. We still don't know who's going to win the election. It's uncertain right now. Despite this, the Taiwanese government has already rushed to congratulate Trump's opponent, Biden, on his victory and is eager to build relationships with them. So what will the Trump administration think? And what will the international community also think about this? Now, of course, from the realistic point of view of international diplomacy, there are no eternal enemies or friends, only eternal interests. So it is understandable that the Taiwanese government is anxious to congratulate Biden on his alleged victory, according to what the media is saying, even though we know it's not true. Now, after all, every national leader has considered this as well in their own national interest. Both Taiwan and Japan are caught really between two powers, when it comes to all this, the U.S. and China, and need protection of the U.S. in order to resist the Chinese Communist Party. For them, the CCP is the bigger threat in this. And really, would Trump hold it against them? Probably not, right? Now, back to this. They need to maintain their own security. China's the biggest threat. And that's why they've rushed to congratulate Biden and to try to draw these relationships closer with the United States. However, it is regrettable, I would say, that this congratulatory gesture seems to be a bit too hasty and is, really trying to validate these statements by the big media in terms of what's happening right now, which are not based in truth. Now, on this a bit more, the help and contribution of the Trump administration to Taiwan in the past 3 years is obvious. We went over it, of course. Now that Trump hasn't lost the election yet, he has not lost the election, and the U.S. election hasn't even officially ended, the Taiwanese government is jumping to congratulate Biden, which could lead to a misunderstanding, I think, that Taiwan doesn't value what Trump has done. Now, and the final result of the election is if it's a reversal, right, and Trump manages to turn the table, how will the Trump administration and the Republicans view Taiwan? What will the Taiwanese government do, right, then to change its stance? Now, secondly, one of Taiwan's most internationally recognized achievements and the biggest difference between Taiwan and the Chinese Communist Party is that Taiwan has a mature and transparent democracy and is a stable, also as well, political system with this as well. Now, however, the U.S. election process has been plagued with flaws, with obvious deficiencies in the fairness and transparency of the election, not to mention a number of legal challenges that are still underway. Since Taiwan rushed to congratulate Biden, it is easy to give people the misconception that Taiwan is using its democratic achievements to endorse Biden, to endorse an election riddled with flaws, or even to endorse leftist socialism, which is all to Taiwan's own detriment. It would not be in their interest to do so. Thirdly, the Taiwanese government may not know enough about Biden's camp and the far-left forces within the Democratic Party. Now, please note that we're not saying that the Democratic Party is bad per se. We're saying that there are far-left forces within the Democratic Party who are pulling the strings on this and are trying to push the U.S. towards socialism or even outright communism. This is the reality of the situation.
这刚高嘉伟讲这个哈，我来补充民进党中常会的笑话哈。他们这个礼拜呢，在研究说川普能不能翻盘哈。然后那个学者就跟中常委庄瑞祥讲，要不要发鸡排哦？蔡总统旁边听了就怒了哈，说不要再赌了。然后大家点点，这个总统生气，不要再赌了。那这为什么叫不要再赌呢？那表示什么？表示你之前有在赌嘛？不然不要再赌了。你进警地保某个波啊。 好，不要再赌了。之前在赌什么？在赌什么？就是我们的押宝都压在了这个川普身上。好，包括庞培欧，待会我们要讨论的。但是已经输了，就不要再赌了。
So I'd like to take note of the first 4 days after the presidential election on November 3rd in the U.S. that the Tsai administration seemingly used its internet army to attack Biden for election fraud. However, 4 days later, she basically changed her mind and was basically like, okay, Biden, you won. All right, we want to be friends now. I wonder how this is going to go over if the Biden administration realizes what she did in the first few days after the election. That's assuming if Biden does in fact get into office, which we don't know yet. There's also a possibility that Trump might do something to her in his last 2 months of office. Who knows? Maybe he'll make a deal. Either way, there's a great deal of uncertainty in the illegal Tsai administration. This is what happens when your re-election is rigged. If the election was legitimate, the Tsai administration wouldn't have to worry who won the election in the United States. They would be fine either way. However, because they are not legitimate, they are greatly worried about what will happen if there's a change in power in the United States.